What light through yonder window breaks? 'Tis I! 'Tis I don't know. We're just making shit up. That's actually a small piece of magic mushroom in some universes that both of those birds are pecking at under the magical tesseract. Yeah, you know what? I know you showed up here to be a smartass and fucking talk shit and be like, oh, hi, bro. But, like, do you have a tesseract? No. Because you're never gonna get on Timu, bruh. Go fight Thanos for one. It'll turn out mine's more powerful. All along. Anyways. There is a old adage here as we eat up a little bit of time. By the way, Dead Wolf Resistance. I'm trying out a tactic here that you and I discussed a while back. That I'm going to test her out for a second. That is, I'm going to go in real smooth like with the Bible on these folk and pull it out. And I ain't going to hit him with no weapon like made of steel, but I'm going to hit him with a book. Alright? You and I already been hit. That's why you burn pages every time. But when you do a freedom fire. But so oh boy. Isn't life good? Okay, we had one viewer and they left. What happened to them? I don't know. Okay, we're gonna talk. I was watching The Sopranos. And there's this scene where Tony Soprano's wife, the lady who plays Nurse Jackie, the blonde, she has the priest over for some pasta in a movie while it's raining outside. The thunder and lightning strike. She looks better without her makeup on, by the way. Did I tell you that? And then they're cuddling and watching the movie and getting ready to make out when he starts, like, throwing up, right? So she doesn't end up cheating on her mafiosa husband. But, nevertheless, right before that, he had been giving her communion in private and talking to her about scriptures, telling her about books that they'd read, how we won't get into all of it. It's a pretty political discussion. But he says something to Mrs. Soprano. He says, you know, it says that the sun shines on the just and the unjust. And of course, Carmilla Soprano says, oh my God! That's just wrong! I mean, I know I'm a Catholic and I read the, but that? She was so horrified. She was like, are you telling me that God likes the horse as much as he likes me? And the priest was like, unfortunately, Miss Soprano, yes. She about boiled her beans at that moment. And that's how church people feel, you know that, right? You know, they're going to tell you, no! We don't feel that way. They might be partially right, okay? I'll tell you what the odds are. When you go to church, there is odds that about 80% of your people, well, let's go lower, because church, according to studies that I've read, which ones? The one from Germany and Australia. Well, that's pretty vague, self. What does that mean? Well, there's this study where they had pedophiles self-report on all kinds of things about their life when they were not afraid of getting in trouble. I think they were like out on parole or something, and it was going to be anonymous. And in a study in Germany and one in Australia, and you can look it up, it turns out that it was in one study it was above 90%, and the other study, I believe the Australian, it was above 88% of pedophiles self-reported as belonging to and regularly attending, if I'm not adding too much there, a Abrahamic religion. That is more than the general public finds SMERS, which claims to go to church at a roughly 57% rate. Last time I checked, something close to that. When in reality, and 25% of them say they go to church once a week, but actually it's only like a couple percent of them. But the rest of them think they do because they're going in their imagination with you. So that's okay. Everybody else says it counts. So let's hold it right there, bucko. What are you trying to say? That the church has more pedophiles than the general population? That's what the pedophiles are saying, according to the studies in Germany and Australia. That's not me. Now, if we were to take that information and amalgamate it, perhaps apply it to some other quandaries, like other criminals, people who like to steal money, rape women. What other kind of criminals do we have? I'm sure there's others. What am I missing? Okay, you just fill in the blank. I'll bet you that they self-report as belonging to one of the three religions at a higher rate than normal as well. So if they're at approximately, let's just go 88%. Let's just say abusers in general have an 88%, because actually if you talk to abusive people, they are more religious than the normal, almost always. Almost every person I've ever known who's been with an abusive person, whether they were male or female, the abuser could be either sex. Once you got to know this person, you'd be like, oh my God, they're so religious. Most of the time. There's 4 people now. Hello, 4 people. How's your day? Have you had your coffee yet? How's your family? Are they driving you crazy? Or are they falling right in line? We had 5 people for just like a second. Now we're down to 3. But 1 thumbs up. So that means that if you look at the portfolio, and we know people have jailhouse conversions like it's no one's business, of criminals, that we're going to say that criminals, if we hold up the data across the board just as a posit, then we would say 88% really claim to be going to church in that population. It is more than the regular population. So we have to assume that if like 80% of people generally have a heart, according to the CIA book author Andrew Bustamante and what the CIA teaches people as soon as they get in training, 80% do to various degrees. But 20% walk Katie bar the door if you find yourself alone and no one's going to find out what they done. They'll kill you and tell God you died. Now don't start laughing on my account. So, give me just a moment here as I sip of coffee. My grandpa taught me that. When you take a sip of a beverage, you take a little sip if it's something you really like. Swallow. It's like the sound a soda can makes when you pop the lid. You make it with your throat. And so when you really like something, you take a drink and you go, try it now if you're watching this video. There's 3 people watching and 1 thumbs up. If you don't have a beverage in your hand, you could make believe or go get one. I'll take the time to wait with you here. Now I'd like you to, I would give them a few more seconds, so that's just not enough time. Get yourself a cup of water. Come on. Juice, maybe. Coffee. Okay, a little cold coffee's good even. I love my coffee after it's been sitting in the pot for about a couple hours. Just turn the heat off as soon as it's done, because it's the burnt coffee that doesn't taste good. All right, so here we go. Let's go sip. Good job. Cheers. Cheers. I shouldn't have to praise you for drinking your own coffee, but I did it. I'm going to praise myself now. You did a good job, self. Good job. Okay, so here we are talking about how the CIA book author, Andrew Bustamante, who says he and his wife are leaving the United States because they perceive political conditions. They don't say it's because of that. He goes all over the internet and says, like in interviews, he does say he and his wife are leaving. But he'll tell you the reason why. He says it's because the laws in the United States are going in directions that because they have children, and because their children are going to be teenagers. That having a young child in the United States is one thing, but once they turn into teenagers, your ability to discipline them, lock them up, do whatever you've got to do to keep them okay is so not there that they're going to move to another country. Let me tell you, I had a friend from Mexico, coworker. She told me I was dealing with some stuff with my brother in rehab, and he was going into pancreatitis and getting sick. And I was like, why is it that they don't just hold them and make them stay when they're so sick that they're like, if they walk out the door and sip one more drink, they're gonna die? And it's like, then lock them up. Like, don't release them, right? And it's kind of maddening because often they do, and that's what. But in Mexico, she said you can have your family locked up and they can't get out until you get them out. You pay to get them locked up in rehab, they're in fucking rehab. They're locked down. So, like, I mean, if you're an American, you're probably not going to be able to utilize it, but that's why these two CIA book authors are actually moving and getting citizenship in another country, and they won't say which one online. But it's specifically because of that shit with teenagers. They're not willing to deal with it. I find that so fascinating that they're thinking like that. That really says something, because both of them are CIA agents. It says that they feel that the laws here, when it comes to children, are so, like, not good for people who are actually trying to parent once you get to a teenager. I think it's that last 4 years or so, you know? Maybe 5. So, finishing school it is, or something along those lines. And out of country finishing school it is for them, I suppose. So back to, this is not completely off topic, okay? So he says that when he and his wife went to CIA school, that the first thing they taught him was that 20% of people are out to get you. Don't let them find you alone. Don't imagine they'll be nice to you if they do, etc. 80% are basically pro-social. I keep repeating this every time I come on here like a living person that speaks a lot of words. And the reason why I say this to you a lot is because I feel like when you hear that 80% of people are basically good, and I keep telling myself this every day, it's like you're forgetting that 20% of people are really, really bad. Really, really bad. They don't need Stanley Milgram to get them to do something. Okay? So, anyways, the Yale baby study says that 20% of babies naturally love bullying. I say it like every YouTube video because I feel like it's so important to understand that they're born that way, and that this operational principle is an interspecies evolutionary construct. It appears to be, at least, in a survival of the fittest framework to induce, high-level competition and rivalry, which Republicans should love, really. And so, I think now I'm down to 0 viewers, but I still have my thumbs up. You didn't take it back yet. I must keep going until I'm a complete success with 2 zeros. So where was I going with this? The sun shines on both the just and the unjust. Okay. Tony Sprato's wife is horrified. And then I said that people in church, when they see a person who looks scary, do they judge? And I was saying, I went to say yes, but then I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him their old fair shako. I would say that since you have a disproportionate number of criminals, I posit, within your establishment, your corporation, your corporate business that is tax exempt, your house is a parsonage, your cleaning products are for the parsonage, everything you buy is tax deductible. And at any rate, here we are, and also if somebody's out of jail and they need to do work, by the way, if they need to do work somewhere to stay out of jail or whatever, they can go to any church to get that work. Almost any church with the 501c can sign off on your hours. Just so you know, like pretty much any church. If you go to any church and you are a prisoner, And we used to do it too. Like if you, or for someone, they let you out in exchange for hours served, the easiest place to go serve your hours is show up at the local church. They're going to have you mopping the floors. They'll have you serving donuts, drinking coffee, serving coffee. But they'll have you all, and they'll let you socialize. Like, so you will work, but you're not going to slave, dude. They're going to have you eating and drinking and lounging around, because we do generally, church people do generally, they do love a whore in the church, or you know, a pimp in the church. They just don't, they don't want you, you know, out there, most of them. But here's the thing. Would they act judgy and mean to the whore if they saw her on the street? We don't say whore. We say a woman currently employed as whore, although it could be against her will, and most likely is. So you have to blame, whenever you say the word whore, you're actually indicting your entire society, because they don't understand that their gold is backed by human trafficking. Even the book by David Graeber suggests the same, and that coinage was made so that people could anonymously exchange like prostitution, because before that, when people bartered, if you were like went to the town prostitute and you left your goat or your staff or your cloak, somebody's going to know where you went, and your wife is going to find out. So temple prostitution and coin money is like appearing on the scene with the military industrial complex and slavery and debt bondage. So at any rate, all these things show up on the scene, and your money is backed with human trafficking. So, you know, there's that. And so the way that they make the money off the human trafficking is they take children who are so young that basically, like, okay, let me explain. Anything that happens at a macro level happens at a micro level, happens at a meso level. Like, we see our solar system has a certain way it looks, and we see atoms have a similar way they work. Like design in nature that seems to go everywhere, right? Even manifest with Jasmine. We'll talk about that. And in her little YouTube channel. And we see it everywhere. And in sociology class, they also teach it to you. And one of the things you also learn if you study is that nobody gets traumatized unless a narcissist is left in charge. So, the earth is a place where narcissists have been left in charge. That's why most people are traumatized. But it's not just you. Look, 50% of coyotes don't make it through the first year. Spotted hyenas, you know, you got two little babies, they eat each other to death, sometimes within the right away, born with their eyes open. This is all across nature. If you just don't want to feel bad about it, all you have to do is like say all the other species are like this too. Dolphins are so violent. Okay, so and rapey. Dolphins are rapey too. And so at any rate, so how do they get women to engage in whoredom? Not by choice. Not by choice. That is by high ACE scores in your childhood. That'll get you doing some against your will type of whoring. And that I posit that because you have to be disassociated to go whoring, it means anybody who is out whoring is actually disassociated. Which means if you're unless they're a pimp, unless they be a pimp also. If they're a pimp, then we're not on the same page. So, or a spy who's pretending to be a whore who isn't really one. Very few exceptions, but there are like a little tiny bit. Okay, so otherwise you're disassociated. How did they get disassociated? Oh, they were abused under the age of 3 continuously, just like certain people who are the adjuncting wizarding community that has been operating out of Babylon, a quartet of Israel, some say, has been advocating since the time of Esther, the very book that many wanted to leave out of the Bible. A lot of people, when they were putting together the Christian New Testament, or the Christian New Testament with the Old Testament, there was arguments going on, and I think it was 325 AD, and there may have been earlier arguments, if I'm not mistaken, when the book was first introduced, that a lot of people did not want the book of Esther. Because it is the story where you are the shame of the nations. Yes, when Achan takes the gold from Jericho, his whole family gets stoned and not anyone's left to tell the tale, so that the genetic memory shows what happens to people who take gold, which is a euphemism for whores, against their will, and takes them for private use against the mainstay of the body. There is rules for this. Just go ask Joshua. But let's go on. So in Esther, we find that Mordecai finds his cousin, right, Esther, and that her father, according to the Talmud and the Hasidic Jews and everybody else, go look it up, that her father died while her mother was pregnant, and then her mother died in childbirth. Okay? Their belief is when a mother dies in childbirth, they can't pass on their soul, so the child has like no gating, no neurological gating. So it's the same as if you're abandoned by your mother, if she's completely negligent, or if your mother dies, she can't pass on her soul because she never gives you mothering. Because the brain is built on mirror neurons. So Esther had the mitochondria, but because the human mind is built on mirror neurons, and the mother was never there to like respond to because the first couple of years of life, let me explain. Babies are born operating primarily in the right hemisphere. Yes, I know it's shocking. 1 person who left a one's thumbs up and took off. Yes, they work out of their right hemisphere when they're born, and they have very short range of distance. And the reason for that is because a baby sees everybody around them as themselves. They have no difference between themselves and others. So, however mom treats baby is how baby treats baby. And then they make a direct mirror copy of how mom sees the baby and deals with the baby's stress. Then they make a copy, and that's how they deal with stress the rest of their life. So, if the mom dies in childbirth, she can't pass that on. So Mordecai swoops in, steals this child. Some say that he actually cut the baby out of the mother's side by C-section in order to take her so the mom would be forced to die, which is possible as well, because there's stories that Jacob did that with Benjamin. So then you go, okay. Then he started Molesting, her, from the time she was born, according to the Talmud and the Hasidic Jews. And it made her so disassociative from newborn that she had no self-will. And she was so disassociative that when she would disassociate, she would look like a different age or a different race. You couldn't even really tell all the way who or what she, because she couldn't remember who she was. So like you see those people on YouTube where they're all switching up and like they legitimately look different. Yeah, she was like that. And it was from being molested by her uncle. That's the story of Esther. And then after he made her, he still had his wife though, and his family. And so she was wandering out, unguarded, unprotected, like a little lost orphan because nobody took care of her in the marketplace, when she was spotted by Xerxes' men and taken in to be a potential mate to the king or whatever, because they called all the women in, right? All the potential concubines, because Hadassah was being put out, and not Hadassah, but that Hadassah is the name of Esther, but the Vashti was being put out because she wouldn't dance naked before the king's men and all this stuff. So Esther gets taken in this camp, and then Mordecai is like, well, I see political opportunity here. She's a disassociative. She's an MK Ultra. I can make her do whatever I want. If they still do this today with disassociatives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have them marry a king or be a concubine to some royal person, because you get right in there in the inner circle. You get all the spy stuff. You can steer them. You can do all kinds of shit. So he got Esther, and he basically sold his own. He whored off his own niece, who he'd been molesting from birth, to a king, to save a tiny little faction of a wizarding community who try to praise the story and encourage other girls to get harmed in the same manner, because as long as you praise the story of, you are, by virtue of Omega Stories, you are training all the girls to say this is the best thing ever. That is what you are doing. And that is why some people didn't want to have it in the Bible. But they say it in The Music Man. These things, all this Bible shit, if you listen to the rabbis, they'll tell you it's a mitzvah to be a rock star as long as you put the Bible in all your shit, okay? So, go listen to The Music Man. There's a song about Esther in The Music Man, and her name is mentioned, okay? The Sadder But Wiser Girl is the name of the song. Esther was known to be green. Her skin was supposedly green all the time. The sadder but wiser girl. Wisdom. Solomon supposedly was the most wise man on earth, and he had built temples of prostitution to foreign gods. The word for wisdom in the Bible is a word that they use for Lilith as the first rapist. That's how she flew away. So the whole story is like Adam and Eve, cardinal directions, north, south, east, west poles. You've got the east is the little boy, the west is the little girl, the north is the mama, the south is the papa. We could get in the details if anyone was paying attention. They asked me a question, I'll tell you where you could go look it up. In the meantime, Yaqui Indians for one, but the Jews also, we don't call them Jews because it's a misnomer. The adjuncting wizarding community operating out of Babylon since blah, 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 who is a quartet of Israel. Okay. Go ahead and try to... I'd like to see someone who's angry write me in for that one. And tell me why you disagree. Anyways, so... Alright. So... what is going on here? This is crazy business. I know. I'm not the only person who thinks this is crazy. Okay, look. Let me try to explain this, even since there's 0 viewers and 1 thumbs up. The money system in the Book of Esther. The whore of Babylon is not a whore because she wants to be. In the, what does it say in the book of the Revelation of John? The whore of Babylon. And they will see their great city from afar off. A lot of people think it's Wall Street where they used to sell slaves. And when they see it crumble and they see their monetary system crumble, they will weep because the whole monetary system is based on putting women into involuntary whoredom. Amazing! Nailed it! No! I'm clapping for the world! No, I'm not! Fuck you! That's sarcasm. I posit to you today that the Antichrist, false prophet, and the beast is no more than a propaganda machine to terrify you and scare you of the person and the group of people who are going to come along and say enough with this fucking money system. You're right, I feel like an Antichrist a little bit right now. I'm feeling it. I know, it's crazy. I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit like an Antichrist. Are you? It is a propaganda machine because they have to open disclosure it, right? But like, why would you think the Antichrist is going to be bad? I myself have invented an Antichrist. Oh, without anybody else. That's a private joke. And I have to say that because I watched a Charlie Rose interview with Anne Rice, and he was like, she was talking about her book really excitedly, and he stops her. He leans in real far, it looked like to me, and he usually rarely just has to get a question in his heart. All his little wolf teeth came out of his mouth, and he didn't look as much like, the grandmother anymore. And so then he's like, oh, all these wonderful topics and how you weave stories together. And he just starts laying it on thick, like tar on a roof or something. He's like, oh, you're so amazing. You must come up with this all alone, don't you? As if he's trying to get her to say that on air so that he can look to the audience and be like, she thinks she gets this on her own. But she gets this look on her face, and her jaw kind of drops, and her lip kind of goes in. And I've never seen her have a look like that before, because she's had a lot of interviews with him by then. And they have a pretty decent rapport. And it's a profound insult. And not everybody would understand how much of an insult it is. If you read an Anne Rice Otto, like if you read some of her interviews where she says these characters were walking around upstairs and she could hear their steps as she was writing the book, he knows that that's not what she thinks. Her feelings are so hurt. She has a look of stunned. Just stunned. I know that wasn't the best grammar, but she just looks stunned. Like, what? He was trying to get her to just jump on that or something like that. Like, but then at the same time, you're watching it and you're like, wait a minute here. Was he? But here's the other thing about it. If you don't let the individual be there as well, I started to think to myself, you know what you know how it's that Sunday morning quarterbacking? You know what? Because of the way he did that shit, I wish I could have an alternate timeline. We could just leave this one here, but one where I take Charlie Rose over, and he doesn't remember the original interview, but you guys can. But he's this version of him that doesn't know the original interview. And just let me take over her body for a second with permission. Or you can stand over there safely. I'll just shapeshift for a second, okay? Or we could set up a hybrid mirror system where you're there and a computer algorithms you to my face and my body in this, like, so that he thinks it's you. Whichever you feel comfortable with. Then what I'll do is he'll say, so I'll bet you came up with all of this on your own. I'll look at him, and I'll do that 70s move that men that had their, like, shirt down with the butterfly collar and the hair, the high hair, and, like, ooh, collar coming down, you left those buttons undone, you got the gold chain, your hair coming out, and you're going to snap your finger, you're going to make a gun shape like you're shooting at someone, and you got to slap your hands together just right. Snap, slap, gun. You got another little, does anybody know? You know what I'm talking about? Am I getting it right? Dead Wolf knows. If I'm getting it wrong, Dead Wolf, it's a 70s move when you're two wild and crazy guys, right? And I'd go like that right at Charlie Rose, and I'd say, you bet, baby, it's all me. Just like that. And then you take it however you want. Just to be disrupting. So now it's like a joke. Oh yeah, it's all me. I don't think so. So this is where you have to look at it like Mount Garib or Ebal, or what is it? Gerizim and Ebal. The mountains of blessing and cursing, children. Come around and listen. There be in the valley of decision, and there is the lukewarm that is not decided. And so, if and you don't want to get vomited out of the Lord's mouth, you got to make due haste to one of two mountains. You got the mountain of cursing, and you got the mountain of blessing. And I just don't even care which one you choose. That's in the, Clint Eastwood song. Sit and choose, all you different crews, chicks and dudes. Who do you think is really kicking tunes? Picture you getting down into Pigeon 2 like you lit the fuse. You think it's mystical? Maybe. Spiritual hero who appears in you to clear your view when you're too crazy? Life is. At the definition of what life priceless to you because I put you on the hype. Should you like it? One toke. Psychic among those possess you with one go. No, it's not like that. It goes You know what? Hold on. How does it go? Oh yeah, since nobody's here, I'll wrap it. Right, I'm not happy, I'm feeling glad. I've got sunshine in a bag. I was useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I have sunshine in a bag. Sunshine, like Aztecs, Abrahamic religions, sun worship, sun shines on the righteous and the just, or the just and the unjust alike, and on the horse. And so, hold on here. Hold on here. What? Cognitive empathy, real empathy. You got two teams, these mountains, this valley. Oh. And then 66% of them, according to the Yale Baby Study, is hardwired to sit in that valley to keep the human race going or something. I don't know why. I assume it's to keep a certain amount of the genetic pool available at any given time. I don't know. So, it's obviously the most popular form of human to be born. According to the Yale Baby Study, 66% of people get their kicks on Route 66. Oh yeah! That's right. From the day they were born, not the night, but the day. They was trouble, nothing but trouble. They was the thorn, not the rose, but the thorn in their father's side, not the artery, but the side. They tried in vain. He tried in vain. God tried in vain. Not the artery, but the vein. But those lukewarm never caused him nothing but shame. They left home the day they thought he died. From the day they were born, shoo-bop, bop. All they wanted was the rock and roll porn on the motorbike. Shooting up. They were a cookie-eating, song-singing bunch. And they never think that they do evil deeds. When the 66 said they didn't like their teddy, you knew they were a no-good kid. So when they threatened your life, so no, I don't want to get, I'm going to threaten their, no. So when God threatened them with 10 commandments, all they did was hid. Should we get them all in trouble now? Should we round them up? Turn it into a disco party? I don't know. What are we going to do? I say secret space mission to Mars. Only the very cutting edge are allowed to go. Somehow all 66 will make it on board. Then, remember in the 80s there was that school teacher and everybody got super excited. There was like a monkey going thing. I don't know if there was at the same time, there was like Gorillas and Mist was popular and monkeys. And I think a monkey saw her. She was like a school teacher, astronaut. She jumps on the astronauting and what happens? It blows up. Maybe we could blow them all up. We could blow in the sky. The best fireworks you've ever seen. At least for the time being. Then what would happen? Then you'd have 20%. So 20 out of 100 are hardcore, like, not what we would call pro-social. 13% are usually super ethical. 1% will be, but the only thing is that the 20%, they won't go after their own kind. But they're actually 21%. But one of them out of the 21 is known in the Yale Baby Study to go after their own kind. So 5% out of those, the bad guys, is actually kind of in the middle. They're not in the middle, but they have some unpredictable Joker algorithm where they could go after either side in it. They could hit either side. So if you got them somehow on your 14%, it would be 14% against 20. Now that we've exploded 66% of people in the sky. Just for now. And then keep working on those suits, Elon. Keep it up. So, no, I'm just kidding. I was pretending to shoot guns at his feet. I do that sometimes, but not all the time. You ever do that? In your imagination station, you turn into a kid and you think of like somebody who's supposed to be doing something, like some inventor, and you like, I don't know, you just watch a cartoon and eat popcorn and you're like, but they're not real guns. They're imagination station ones, and you go, pa, 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 right? Make those Mars suits, and then we'll just pretend to launch them. I'm just kidding. Don't really do that. That's a joke. Although he has been making them. My true belief on those suits is make them as Freeman suits. They're really for Earth. Desertification. Also, I've been thinking about this. The ocean is going to burp eventually. I think every so often you get a good old-fashioned burp out of the ocean, don't you? I've been watching these documentaries, and volcanoes, there's like 3 recent things that have happened, including the incident at Nyos Lake, where 1,700 people plus dropped dead because there was a volcano there for a long time. And I guess periodically it would have this burp where like it would have like, it has a buildup over time of toxic gases, but the cold water at the top of the lake keeps the warmer stuff down below. But when it hits a certain tipping point of critical mass, or whatever you call it, when it's a big gas bubble, it blows out the side like a fart, pops to the surface, and then basically like in a certain miles of range of the lake, I guess the flies, the ants, termites, if you had to breathe, you for 2 people that I read about. Maybe there's more. Maybe I missed the story where, more people lived, but both of these people lived in houses with people who died, and they remember passing out and not being able to breathe. And the one guy remembers waking up the next day when everybody else was dead, and he couldn't breathe when he first woke up. That's what the story says. He was struggling to get anything in his lungs at all. Now, may I ask you, this is when I have moments where I go, when I'm thinking in my mind, in my imagination station, I think some things like, I go, gosh, I can't believe like the X-Files like version of the FBI hasn't gotten all over this. Because it makes you wonder. I've read so many stories with things that are similar to this. If 1 out of 1,000 people, Solomon even said 1 out of 1,000 were wise, right? What if the way we think of it is we're not, maybe not wise that way. I don't want to think of it that way. But maybe there's 1 out of 1,000 rule in general. I don't know. There could be something that pops up in the population at approximately 1 in 1,000, or 1 out of every, 1,500 approximately, who, because I know a lady. She woke up in the morgue, in the chiller, with a toe tag. Her name's Karen Medrano. Everybody knows about it. Yes. And then another time, she was super high on drugs driving down the freeway in LA, and she suddenly got sober and went through no withdrawals. And she said it was the kind of drug she should have gone through crazy withdrawals. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. Because if he was still like that when he woke up, like how did those 2 people live? How did she wake up in the morgue? Do certain people's bodies like go into some sort of semi-comatose state where all their tissues preserved? Like, do they hibernate? Do they have some latent genetic potential? What is happening there with this genetic profile that does that? And why haven't we taken them all in and studied their genetics and figured out how to aid the rest of us? Yeah? Yeah. These are people who can't, why would you would find that out, like if you had a super soldier program, or you'd be thinking to yourself, like, if the X-Files doesn't get out here, the Russians will make a super soldier program based off of Lake Nyso. That's my first thinking. I'm like, geez, you want to find out everything you can. You want to let them walk around and live a normal life while you secretly test their genetics. Because, they don't want to, at first you don't want them to know. And then you keep an eye on their doctor's records, right? Because a lot of it gets uploaded in the computer anyway. But eventually, you'd probably try to get them in, bring them in. If you were a government, I can't imagine. I don't know. I don't want you to do bad things to those people. I'm just saying, like, I can't imagine, like, that they didn't ask them for a bone marrow sample or something like that. And that's kind of painful, but it seems like kind of surprising that they hadn't done that yet. So, anyways, I mean, I guess if you wanted to make the person less traumatized, a government person would sneak in there, knock them out, take the bone marrow thing, and make it look like a bug bite, and make sure they wouldn't get sick, and then wander off and just continue to monitor their doctor's office or something if you were being least invasive. But you definitely would want to get samples from them. I mean, you'd want to know what kind of fingerprint styles they had. You'd want to test their hair. You'd want to be looking at, like, well, their hair, you're going to see if there's some, you're looking at their genetics, but you also want to see if they've been eating anything, doing anything. If there's a consistent dietary thing, you want to find out what it is that's been happening with them. You know, the closest we have to hair, if they have some hair on their head. And so you would be thinking, like that's just some interesting shit. But anyways, so now back to the story again. Here we are. We've got 20% of humanity. Look, hi, one person. Hi. Did you show up? Hello. We're so excited to have you here today. How are you doing? Did you have your coffee yet? Is your family giving you a hard time? Or are they falling right in line? Like little ducks in a row, like sausages on a platter, like little tacos lined up, where they just running loose in the field, causing you mischief. Your hand is to your brow, a tear upon your cheek. What are they doing now? Oh! So, which camp you're landing in, I don't know. So, what are we doing today? Not much. Just talking. What are you doing? Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, so the sun shines and the just and the unjust alike. But then why is it all the world religions are like, the sun will go black and darkness be upon the land? Why is that? Okay, people who never knew about the Bible would be more happy, IMO. Okay, the reason why you think that is because you're that way, and I'm going to tell you why, if you'll hear me out. I read a study. I'm looking for it, because one day I found it in the Drudge Report, and I have not been able to find it since. But it was a study that was studying autistic people in church, and they found that, like, most neurotypicals actually do report an increased bump. Those people who are so drawn to church that they go, if they're a neurotypical, they actually do get life quality, they report life quality increases. Yes, they do. But if you are autistic, they were saying the autistic population, when they tested this, was almost universally reporting a loss in ability to socialize with other people and at work in normal everyday life after attending church. And it was like, I was fucking stunned. And now I've been tested on my reading comprehension, and they couldn't test higher going into college. I have a very good reading comprehension, and I know what I read on that. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm looking for the article, and I'm going to have to really hunt it down, because sometimes articles pop up in Drudge Report, and if you don't, like, save it, it's tricky to find later, some of them. And I know the reason why. It'll come up again, it'll get popular again, but I think what happened is they realized that they were onto something, because I was in the church for 10 years, and I can tell you, even though it was a cult, that neurodivergents get it the worst. They get nailed in church. Like, if somebody's going to abuse a kid in that church, some weirdo, they're going to go after the neurodivergent kid, and regardless of whether they get him or not, the neurodivergent not being... Okay, in schools, what do? Because schools would lose funding, and because children have to be tested every year, and they turn these tests in, schools look bad if they leave neurodivergence in the class with neurotypicals, because it will drive down all their test scores. So the neurodivergents have to be tested, put into special classes where they have their needs attended to so that they can get their grades for them and be taught at their grade level, whereas in the mainstream class, they can't teach more than a few months above grade level or behind without sending you to another class. So like in school, if you're neurodivergent, they want to put you in a special needs class where it's 1 teacher to 7 students where you can get better grades, because it drives down the data for the school and it makes the principal look like shit. But in a church, there's nobody giving the people in the church a test every year, though we give them the parsonage, though we let them write off every bottle of Lysol and every little smell candle they buy for their house on a tax write-off. We don't test the congregation for whether or not they can go to work and socialize with society after they've been there. But I guarantee you, if we did, the churches would quickly move the neurodivergence, if the money was on the line, to another building. If your tax money, you couldn't keep your tax exempt fucking status if your neurodivergence couldn't report a quality of life. If they have to go to the mental hospital and on disability after going to your goddamn church, the government needs to stop funding your ass. Take away their tax breaks and back tax them or get them. Fucking when they get you know what? You can't back tax them, but boy, wouldn't that be nice. Boy, wouldn't that be the fantasy of fantasies. If you could get them for abusing the neurodivergent community and make the church pay the government. Goddamn. Anyways, we were talking about that. If the data for autistics holds up for all neurodivergents, and then you've got a higher than normal pedophile population and criminal population in the church. So let's say you've got let's say 88% of really like hardcore dangerous criminals, say they go to Abrahamic religions. If the data holds from pedophiles to other criminal populations, then we could posit that if it did, right, that when a person who's neurodivergent goes to church, they're just sitting ducks in a population with more criminals than normal. I would think the government would want autistic people. Let me tell you why. The Kellogg study studies PS50 gating, which is neurological gating. People with neurological gating deficits, such as the autistic community, are known that if they're around people, like if you're autistic, your IQ could test 150 one day and 210 the next. Because whoever's in your direct proximity will cause you to function at a different level. So the Kellogg study says if you're within 25 feet, sight unseen, of really productive people, you get a 15% burst in productivity. That's a lot. You're trying to finish a book, you're trying to do something at work, that's a lot. But if you're around unproductive people, you get a 30% deficit. That is a lot. You want to talk about driving down your numbers? That's a lot. Now imagine for an autistic person, what they said is they can have super skills or super deficits because of this. If I was like Elon Musk, I'd set up a program and I'd say, bring me the autistic kids and send them out here where I have all my super geniuses and let's start working with them. Symposiums and get them all over it. I know. I'm not supposed to talk about things like that, but because if you put them around a bunch of geniuses, a bunch of autistic kids and well-regulated geniuses and stuff in a functional environment, like the country, I can't believe in the 80s we had this crazy like space wars and all this stuff going on. I cannot believe that if we are not engaged in space wars, like who gets to the moon first, who does this Mars first, who does that first, when we're not doing that, like we're going to be fighting someone, right? But like think about it this way too. Autistic people Like, I can't believe our countries haven't engaged in basically, like, I can't believe that China and Russia, for instance, hasn't taken Iran, any country that has autistic children. I can't believe, and that has the Saudi Arabia, that would be able to get the parents to leave their kids in a special program, partially, part of the time. Say it's patriotic fucking shit. Like, send them off with the super geniuses in a well-regulated environment where their bodies are comfortable, and then race for technology with them. That's scary, huh? I don't know. Maybe it's all bad ideas. What does it mean for the sun to shine on the just and the unjust alike? For a world that I'm always wanting to burn, I do come up with a lot of ideas all by myself. Okay, the just and the unjust. What's the just and the unjust? As long as you have a money system, though, it is operating based on other stuff, and you have to think about how the Antichrist is probably the biggest hero, the big hero of the day, and that if we invented something like True Blood, that could give this that we could give to people who have these sadistic urges, that would make it, but make it more addictive, but there's no crime involved, and then make it to where they have to get it from the government, and they can't touch kids, and in order to just stay feeling okay, they have to report to the government and work for us and the autistics. Well, now you see why they don't do it. So, and then we can take down the money system and go after the aliens. Because really, that's what we've got to do. We have to conquer outer space. Ask not what your planet can do for you, but ask what you can do for your planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose, all alone, that we attack the sun and the stars. But first, we need to invent a way to get out of the solar system. Then we attack. I would blame our astrological signs for our sins. Blow the whole Bible story and the blacking out of the sun and the reddening of the ocean by the big burp, like in the volcano of Nisan, which probably happens every so often with the ocean, and parts of it go red and people die. But anyways, dang, hot damn. Do you want me to play some delightful music? Alright. I am going to do that. Because I feel so generous. I'm being purposefully arrogant if you just showed up. We had a long discussion about how it's an inside joke. Okay, here we go. Eve Libertine? Yeah. She's like, how can you truly be alone when you use another's voice? Whoa! What you will say? I'm all for a war. As long as the men are fighting and not at home. Got two thumbs up. Somebody's here. A church song. Okay. Wait. Yeah. And set to fire all the fine works of mankind. I always imagine he's a bit like a dungeon master, playing Dungeons and Dragons somewhere, you know, making up games, toying with the idea of uniting his mind with the AI and turning into a hybrid monster, setting up worldwide games that fuel the Earth through the solar system, and will only let the other planets come if they're trained. Trained! Ha 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 ha! Oh, you're all. Alright. Anyways. Yes. Okay, so the just are those who try to be justified. Those who say that sin, you know, like, I'll go ahead and hurt people because it's better for them and I feel great when I do it. So they're like, I'm justified because God loves us to just hurt people because he likes the Book of Esther. And he thinks that pointless meanness is the best thing. And that's why Jim Morrison said, Indian, what did you die for? And the Indian said, nothing at all. Nothing. Gently they stir. Gently rise now. The dead are newborn, awakening, ravaged limbs and wet souls. Gently they sigh in rapt funeral amazement. Who called these dead to dance? Was it the young woman, learning to play the ghost song on her baby grandma? Was it the wilderness children? Was it the ghost god himself? Stuttering, churring, chatting blindly. He called you to anoint the earth. Called you to announce sadness falling like burned skin. And Jim Morrison said he called on you to pray? Ugh. What the fuck is that shit?